6 per game, long, athletic, can guard multiple positions, one of the best in the ACC.
Georgia Tech enters this contest 4-3 overall. They are 1-0 in ACC play, 4-1 this season here at home. Meanwhile, Alabama A&M 1-6, searching for their first road win. They've played 5 games on the road already, 0-5 in those contests. Dewana jumping for Georgia Tech, and the Yellow Jackets control the tap. This is a young Yellow Jackets team. They are long, they are tall, haven't been shooting the ball as well as they had hoped coming in. Kelly's 3 in and out.
It's a great point, James. You know, to your point, they do not shoot the ball that well from the 3, but I think they have capable shooters. It's just about shot selection.
The starting 5 for the Bulldogs, keep an eye on Omari Peak. He's been really good, leading the team in scoring the last 2 games. And 13 points just the other night at Vanderbilt. Piercing the lane, shot won't fall for Bryant, collects his own miss and scores on the follow.
Good job on the backboards, Alabama A&M.
Starting 5 for Georgia Tech, a couple of freshmen, Dongo and George in the lineup for the 4th consecutive game. Extra pass and a 3. Offensive rebound for the Yellow Jackets. And Tim, both of these teams average around 13 offensive rebounds per night. How big will that be today?
It's huge, and the team is that big up front, but they're very long and athletic.
Pull up from Smith, off the heel. Reeves an open look, and it'll go.
Well, that's good offense by Georgia Tech, finding the open Reeves on ball reversal. Good job with the spacing as well by Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech, as I noted, 4-3. They have some really nice wins. Took down Mississippi State, took down Duke. But they have losses to Cincinnati by almost 40 points. They have a loss to UMass Lowell. What's been the difference for the Yellow Jackets from those big wins to those losses?
Well, basically it's shot selection. You know, some nights they just will shoot quickly into half court. I think they're just still trying to learn the system. And also the insertion of George into the starting lineup, I think, has really helped Georgia Tech.
On the follow by Dongo gets it down, and Georgia Tech leads by 3 early. What do you like about George's game? You mentioned him just a moment ago.
You know, the thing about his game is that he pushes the ball. He's a natural point guard. He's got 11 assists, 9 turnovers on the season, but he's learning the position. It's tough for a freshman to come in and play at the ACC level, but he's doing a very good job of getting them out in transition and pushing the pace.
Georgia Tech's Dongo commits a foul. There's a look at head coach Damon Stoudemire in his first season. He was an assistant for the Boston Celtics the last 2 years. Was also a head coach at Pacific from 2011 and was the West Coast Conference Coach of the Year in 2020. He was there for 6 seasons. Down low, Williams bumping and scoring for Alabama A&M.
Well, E.J. Williams is a big man down low. You've got to do your work early. You cannot let him carve out that space right at the rim.
Reeves dashing baseline. Tip in, no. Tim, one thing about this Bulldogs team, they play with no fear because they play such a tough non-conference schedule as they turn it over for the first time. They are coached by Otis Hewley Jr. in his second season. They went 15-18 last year, 10-8 in the SWAC, finished 5th. Preseason picked 7th in this year's conference poll.
Well, Coach Hewley's got a lot of experience, both professionally and internationally, and he's bringing a wealth of knowledge to this program.
He spent a decade with the NBA China program. As Georgia Tech throws it away.
Nowhere to go, and again, you leave the floor without a purpose, and that's what happens. And usually Kelly will take that all the way to the rim and shoot it, and that's what Damon Stoudemire is telling him. Shoot it.
When he's at his best, what stands out to you about Miles Kelly?
Well, he creates space. I like that he moves very well without the ball. He's hard to guard because he's in constant motion, not only up and down in transition, but in the half court. He does a good job of reading the defense.
Georgia Tech with a nice defensive rotation. Corner threes off the mark from Alabama A&M's A.C. Bryant.
Good effort on the baseline by Ndungo. He's very long. He does a lot of good things. Very good-looking freshman.
Pulls up from 16. Doesn't get the friendly roll. Yellow Jackets have started 2 for 8 from the field. Over 2 minutes without a point.
Alabama A&M's doing a nice job of getting back in transition, making Georgia Tech play against a set defense.
Dewana, handoff Reeves out on the arc. Double team, and they suffocate the guard on the perimeter and jar it loose. Ahead to Smith, and one. And Alabama A&M has grabbed the lead. It's 6-5 early on.
Well, turnovers will always kill you. That man right there, Ndungo, he's a really hard guy to defend and scout because he moves around so well. He's so long and athletic, and at the end of the Duke game, he was making play after play. He went head-to-head with Kyle Filipowski, and Nate George really, as we said before, gets them up-tempo, and that's what Damon Stoudemire wants to play. He wants to push the ball, and that's what George does. He's a natural point guard. He looks for Miles Kelly. Miles Kelly and him, I think, fit perfectly together.
Dongo, the big, grew up playing soccer, so he has great feet. He also possesses a 7'2" wingspan for Georgia Tech in the middle as a rim protector.
That Duke game, Dongo stepped out and made a 3 early as well, so I think you're going to see his game expand as they move forward, because Damon Stoudemire really expressed that to us, James, that player development is so important. They're going to keep emphasizing that on a daily basis. I mean, all schools do that, but I think they really, his experience in the pros will help them grow individually.
Reeves has his second 3, and that ends a 3-minute scoring drought for Georgia Tech as they reclaim the lead early. Nine to shoot for Alabama A&M. Clean look from the top. Wide right. And the rebound out of bounds to the Yellow Jackets.
Well, Damon Stoudemire did an outstanding job when he coached at Pacific, and he ventured into the NBA, and saw him up close and personally quite a bit on the floor working with players at the Boston Celtics. And when he left in the middle of, towards the end of last season, a lot of the players missed him because he really gave them. He was a really good individual players coach, and he talked about the difference between the NBA and college. And college is 24/7.
Cross-court skip pass, and a 3 from Kelly is down.
They really use that skip pass well, especially against that zone. They ball fake. They have a flash cutter in the middle of the floor. Then they skip it and try to find Kelly on the weak side.
Georgia Tech 3 for 6 from 3, but 1 for 5 from inside the arc. Bulldogs hoisted up, in and out. Caleb Blackwell has entered the lineup for Alabama A&M. On the handle, leads the team with 22 assists. The freshman point guard throws it away, and Alabama A&M has their second blunder.
Good pressure defense on the ball, and that time Blackwell just had his head down, wasn't aware of the pressure. That's what Coach Hewley says, is you got to give it up earlier. Too much pounding into the floor.
You brought this up earlier, Tim. Both of these coaches have a lot of NBA experience. How similar or different is the college game in the NBA here in 2023? It used to be a glaring discrepancy back in the day, but is it a little bit more similar now?
No, it's analytics driven. It's 5 out. It's shoot the 3 or get it to the rim. And that's the way the NBA is playing it, and that's the way college is as well.
Kelly knifing in, stop and pop, and he draws a foul to head to the line for a pair.
But Alabama A&M still plays a little old school basketball. You know, they'll go with the bigs inside. They've got Williams and they got Tavares, and there's that good passing by Georgia Tech. And we just mentioned it. Space the court, reverse the basketball, take it in the gap, get it to the rim.
Kelly's a 73% foul shooter. He had a stretch towards the tail end of last year. The last 8 games for Miles Kelly, he averaged 20 points per game, shot 48% from the field, 44 from 3, and 95% from the foul line. Offensive rebound for Georgia Tech. Sturdivant for a 3. Rebound fumbled around down low, and Georgia Tech's out of bounds. They're on a 7-0 scoring run to take a 5-point lead.
You know, Alabama A&M could cause some problems today on the backboards because they do have the wide bodies up front, some good quick wings. And Georgia Tech's not a great rebounding team, so right now, though, Georgia Tech's doing a good job on the offensive glass.
Alabama A&M coming off a 78-59 loss to Vanderbilt. They only shot 29% for the game. Really went cold in the second half. They were in it most of the first session. Tavares for a 3, short. An offensive rebound, and the stick back goes for Eric Lee.
Lee is long and athletic, and not a good block-out situation on that possession for Georgia Tech.
And Georgia Tech turns it over for the 4th time. Sends us to a timeout. Georgia Tech, Washington State. And then through the first month of this season, Tim, the league already has wins over UNLV, Mississippi State, Missouri, and VCU. What's making this conference more competitive?
It's a good league. It really is. Good coaching, good support from the universities themselves. And Norfolk State, remember that they beat Missouri in the NCAA tournament a few years ago. And you've got to be ready to play against these teams. You know, when you go up and down the league, I look at the coaches, and you don't have to look far. Otis Hewley is an outstanding coach at Alabama A&M, and the records are deceiving because a lot of these schools, just like Alabama A&M, they spend the most of the first 6 weeks of the season on the road to get the guaranteed checks, but they're quality, high quality, and with the NIL stuff, they're a little behind in that, and so they've got to recruit in a different way. And look at this Alabama A&M team. They're a solid team. I think they're going to cause some problems in the SWAC.
Foul called on Caleb Blackwell, his first. The second team foul on the Bulldogs. Nice pass underneath and a dunk for Ibrahima Sacco.
Good job by Sacco on the backside, just finding that open seam. Alabama A&M rotated over, no one rotated down.
Sacco, another high-ceiling freshman for the Yellow Jackets. 17-footer rattles off, out of bounds to Georgia Tech.
Well, good passing by Georgia Tech. And Georgia Tech, when they're on their game, they're making that extra pass. And here's that little pass through the defense by Coleman, and that's what Damon Stoudemire has been stressing. Just make that extra pass, and working very hard on their offensive execution and shot selection.
Coach Stoudemire noted that he feels like they're taking too many threes, passing up 2s for 3s. A walk on the inside, Tyzhaun Claude turns it over.
Claude is one of those tough players, played at Western Carolina, but he has adjusted to playing at this level so far. He played very well in the Duke game.
That was the 5th Georgia Tech turnover. Drive and kick. A three from McLean is an air ball.
Not a good shot by McLean on that possession. He was not open.
Alabama A&M still searching for their first three. They've started 0 for 4.
Well, Georgia Tech doing a good job of closing out, not over-helping on ball side, and then contesting the threes.
A foul called on Eric Lee of Alabama A&M, third team foul. Second personal on Lee. Sturdivant and Reeves playing catch out front. Rebound tapped around to a Bulldog. Alabama A&M on a scoring drought of over 2 minutes. Moody spinning. Banker rolls off. Right back to him. The follow's short, and it's out of bounds.
That's good defense by Georgia Tech. With every dribble towards the paint, towards the rim, their defense shrinks. There's a lot of help in and around the basket. This is a well-oiled defensive set right here. This team is good ball pressure. Don't overhelp, but you see the help in the lane.
A tough one knocked down by Jalen Randall.
Well, that's what Georgia Tech's trying to do, though. They're trying to force you into tough twos, but it's a good offensive shot in the paint.
Georgia Tech with their 6th turnover, and Alabama A&M wants to run. Jumpers, an air ball hoisted up. A whistle. And a jump ball.
Sacco's a strong man on the inside. He's 6'6", 225. Well built for a freshman.
And Damon Stoudemire, head coach of Georgia Tech, told us that we are way ahead defensively, behind the 8 ball on offense, though. They held Mississippi State to their lowest offensive efficiency rating of the season, according to Ken Pom. And it was Duke's 3rd worst performance against this Georgia Tech defense. Long three. And the rebound to a Yellow Jacket with a foul over the back. Dylan McLean picks up his first and the 4th team foul. Tim, how is Georgia Tech struggling to take care of the ball on this end, though? 6 turnovers for the Yellow Jackets.
Well, they're a little bit over dribbling in the area where they're tight. The spacing isn't always good. I think Georgia will get them better into their sets. Got to do a better job of ball reversal and then get some more movement away from the ball.
3 from Coleman. Georgia Tech with 6 turnovers and 5 made shots in this first half. Drive and kick and a 3's off the back rim. A miss from Riley, and it's out of bounds to Georgia Tech.
You talked about their defense, James, and their defense has been very, very effective all season long. They've done a pretty good job. Their field goal percentage defense has dipped in a couple games, the Cincinnati game being one, where Damon Stoudemire said, we haven't been the same team on the road. And that was seen again this past week in their loss at Georgia, but he said we're a work in progress. We don't care who we're playing, when we're playing. We're just going to keep trying to build for the long haul. So I like his ideas, and you can see that their defensive philosophy is very, very solid. So that will keep them in most games, and if they can get their offense clicking, they could be a mid to upper tier team in the ACC.
I think the big thing that stood out from the Georgia loss on Tuesday was Georgia Tech missed 15 layups in that game. After a deflection, it'll stay on this end with the Yellow Jackets, and that sends us to our under 8 media timeout. It's a low-scoring grinder here in Atlanta.
And the other one's shooting 33, so we won't criticize the offense teams. We'll take the positive outlook. We'll say it's really good defense so far, but both teams need to get into a better rhythm. A little stagnant is what I would say. Too much dribbling, not enough movement without the basketball.
Georgia Tech, this has been a theme over the course of the week. They went 6 minutes without scoring in the first half against Georgia on Tuesday, and today they have 2 3+ minute droughts. This one approaching 3:30. Shot clock into single digits. George, the freshman, in trouble, has to put it up, and a shot clock violation forced by Alabama A&M.
Alabama A&M on the season has been less than impressive defensively. They give up 48% field goal percentage and give up 86 points a game, but looking like an improved defensive team today. Real good effort out of the gate for Alabama A&M.
They feed McLean one-on-one. Work it against Reeves, takes him baseline, can't connect, and the rebound Dongo, the freshman who's been impressive for Georgia Tech. Burrowing to the basket and a foul.
Well, that's what Georgia Tech needs to do. They need to force the issue in transition, and that's what they did in the Duke game. They came right out of both the first half and after halftime of pushing the pace. Off a miss, they got the ball down the court. They made threes out of transition. They got to the rim. They got to the free throw line.
Free throw bounces in for Gapare. And that ends the 4+ minute drought for the Yellow Jackets. Omari Peak re-enters the lineup for Alabama A&M. And Peak's a matchup problem for these Power 5 schools even. He's 6'6", 220, a senior, plays out on the perimeter, actually started the year at point guard for Alabama A&M.
Now, Peak's a good-looking player. He's got good size for a guard, strong as well.
Georgia Tech 2 for 4 from the foul line in this first half. Alabama A&M just 5 of 21 from the field. Peak, he's a bucket getter, not that time.
Again, good defense by Georgia Tech, getting out, quick closeout and contest.
Reeves and one, headed to the line for the old-fashioned three-point play.
Kowacie Reeves is an efficient player. He can shoot the threes. Good ball handler, and that little Euro step to the rim.
He came to play this afternoon, has 8 of Georgia Tech's 17. Entered today averaging just over 11 points per game. The transfer from Florida, a 5-star prospect out of high school and a top 30 player by ESPN. That was only the second field goal over the last 7 minutes for Georgia Tech. They pushed their lead to 7. They're doing it on the defensive end. Outside long-range three is money for Riley.
That was good offense on that possession, and Alabama A&M settling in a little bit the last few possessions.
First 3 of the afternoon for Alabama A&M. Double comes, and Georgia Tech turns it over for the 8th time in this first stanza. And a steal from George. Dishes back in a 3, trailing buckets. Miles Kelly knocks it in.
Now that's what we were talking about earlier, James, how Nate George and Miles Kelly play so well together. They seemingly are attached at the hip. They know where each other is on the court. That time, good recognition by George with a little shovel pass to the trailer.
Georgia Tech matches their largest lead, Flipping it up, Lorenzo Downey going to the line to shoot 2.
Miles Kelly always looks for Nate George in transition, off a rebound, off a turnover, because he knows this. When he gives it to George, he's going to get it back.
When Kelly is set and squared, he's one of the best shooters in the country.
He does a nice job, though. He doesn't try to force the issue. Sometimes he will take some quick threes, but he has that mix to his game where he gets to the free throw line. He's got the good mid-range as well.
Reeves and Kelly have combined for 16 of Georgia Tech's 21. Downey goes 1 for 2 for Alabama A&M. Kyle Sturdivant enters the lineup for the Yellow Jackets, who ranks 7th in the conference in assist-turnover ratio. He's been rock solid, mostly off the bench this year. Sturdivant lost the handle, and then he commits a foul trying to save the possession.
Just trying to rush things. There's really nowhere to go here. Alabama A&M is tight. They've got, Georgia Tech has 3 players on that side of the floor. You've got to reverse the ball when there's no spacing on ball side.
9 turnovers for the Yellow Jackets to just 7 field goals made in this first half.
That's what Damon Stoudemire was talking to us about yesterday. He just said, offensive efficiency, we got to continue to work on that every day. Some days we find it, some days we don't. Right now, Georgia Tech's too tight. They need better spacing, better ball movement, better player movement.
Mid-range jumper doesn't go for Dalen Smith, and the rebound, Georgia Tech. Reeves puts it on the deck, funnels it, a hop step, and Gapare can't get it down.
Good defense. Alabama A&M converged on the basketball.
They are feisty defensively, this Alabama A&M team.
Well, they are. They haven't shown that so much this year, but you see their length is problematic in the lane and at the rim.
Near steal, loose ball, picked up by a Bulldog. Pocket pass, Peak blows the gimme. George, corner, Kelly, yes. Third 3 of the half for Miles Kelly. He leads.
Georgia Tech is Miles Kelly because he can score in a lot of different ways, and they do a nice job of finding him. But he's got to keep mixing his game up. Today he's doing a really good job of moving without the basketball, coming out in transition. And on that last possession, Alabama A&M Coach Otis Hewley was not happy with Amari Peak. A quick timeout after they left Kelly wide open in the corner.
Thought it was interesting. Georgia Tech coach Damon Stoudemire told us that they have to get Miles Kelly better shots.
Yeah, it goes both ways. You've got to get him better shots, and he's got to find better ways to get open and move without the ball and use screens as well.
Peak off the back rim. Rebound Reeves for Georgia Tech. Largest lead of the game for the Yellow Jackets. Can't add to it as a 3 rolls out.
Well, Abrams 2 for 10 on the year, but that was a pretty clean look on ball reversal.
In the paint and in some trouble, Alabama A&M gets it back out on the arc.
Well, Georgia Tech, absolutely their game plan defensively in every game is not let you get to the rim. They are closing out quickly and giving Alabama A&M that mid-range shot.
Georgia Tech top 6 in the ACC in field goal percentage defense. Just barely beating the buzzer, but the shot won't go, and Alabama A&M 22% from the field in this first half. Reeves coast to coast, +1. He's headed to the line.
Well, we've seen Kowacie Reeves do this a few times tonight. He just gets out in transition. He's very good off the bounce, and he has good body control at the rim.
Reeves and Kelly in double figures with 11 and 10 respectively. They have 21 of the team's 26. How does Georgia Tech's stars get some help?
Well, it's got to start with the point guard, George. He's got to get everybody involved, and you see much up front from Dongo as well. We got to try to get him involved.
Georgia Tech has been able to overcome 9 turnovers to build a 12-point lead. Looking much more in sync the last couple of minutes. Corner 3 off the side of the glass from Riley, and Georgia Tech wants to run. Kelly, he'll head to the line to shoot a pair.
Well, that's the best way to cure a night offensively where you're struggling in the half court is that good solid defense, a nice contest by George in the corner, and then get it out and go.
Kelly up to 11 points. E.J. Williams enters the lineup for Alabama A&M. Tim, as a former coach, how hard is it? We mentioned at the top that next week is finals week for Georgia Tech. They'll have a week off. How hard is it this last tune-up before finals to get your team really locked in?
Well, you've got to just commit to it. You've got to commit to, you only play 35 games a year. So, you know, why aren't you ready? And I think Georgia Tech was ready today. I think the mindset is there. They've got a really good coaching staff, an experienced coaching staff. And you've got to understand, you show your team these upsets, and you don't come to play, you can get upset very easily. But Georgia Tech now has picked up the pace.
Tyzhaun Claude with the two-handed slam. Georgia Tech's on a 9-0 run. Bulldogs have hit just 2 of their last 18 shots.
Everything is being contested, and Georgia Tech's doing a pretty good job on the glass. That time, Williams, though, throwing his body around.
A minute left before we break for intermission. Shot clock at 8 for Alabama A&M. A hop step, piercing the lane, and a block from Reeves. And then an Alabama A&M foul, and that is their 9th in this first half. So Georgia Tech walks to the other end to shoot free throws.
Well, Alabama A&M is not going to get out of this offensive funk unless they start moving without the ball a little bit more. They're trying to do everything off the bounce, and Georgia Tech is doing a good job. They're forcing away from the paint, and then when they do get in the paint, they send the second and third defender in there, and that happens, you've got to slide in open areas on the perimeter and try to drive and kick and create some open threes.
Kowacie Reeves shooting the 1-and-1, and he gets the back end. Alabama A&M, they have already played all 13 scholarship players in this first half, as Reeves has really been on a tear the last 2 games. Georgia Tech's largest lead of the half. They've ballooned it to 17. Williams twisting, walled up, throws it up and in over Claude.
That was pretty good defense, but E.J. Williams was bound and determined to put his head down in a little reverse pivot spin. Nice move for the big fella off the window.
He is 6'10", 275 pounds. He's played in 115 career games for Alabama A&M.
I was going to say that's a little bit too much dribbling, but he proved us wrong with that good dexterity.
Deep in the shot clock, flipping it up with the left. That's pretty from Amari Abram.
A nice move by Abram with the opposite hit with the left. He is a lefty, but good move, good footwork.
Halftime is here. Georgia points. They are 7 of 11 from the field together. The rest of the team just 4 for 12. And Kowacie Reeves set a new career high for rebounds in the first half with 8 already. A foul on the first possession of this second half on Alabama A&M.
Well, Alabama A&M's defense was pretty solid as well in the first half. They just have to get a bit more consistent on the offensive end. Too much dribbling, not enough movement with the pass.
Georgia Tech ended that first half 6 of 8 from the floor and on a 13-2 run. George, a jump pass out high for Kelly. Reeves, rebound number 9. Nine to shoot for the Yellow Jackets. Reeves, lock and load, won't go. Another tap out. Yellow Jackets get their 3rd try. A&M is in the paint and Georgia Tech's on the perimeter, but those deep rebounds are coming right back out to the offense. A whistle and a blocking foul called on Alabama A&M's Lorenzo Downey. Bulldogs played 13 players in that first half, and Coach Hewley told us, Tim, that these non-conference games, they're trying to stay fresh for league play.
He's rolling them in and out of there, that's for sure. He's trying to find the right combination on offense.
Georgia Tech with their 10th turnover. Yellow Jackets only average 11.7 turnovers per game, already 10 in this one. Dalen Smith, the top scorer on the season for the Bulldogs, bumping and drawing a foul. He heads to the line to shoot 2.
This is what Alabama A&M needs to do. They need to try to space it and then dribble drive into the gap and draw some fouls, because Georgia Tech, they're going to swarm the basketball when it does get in the lane.
Dalen Smith averages 13.5 points per game. It's an interesting story. He is completely self-taught. He didn't play basketball until high school, and here he is. He has started the last 3 seasons for Alabama A&M. Scored over 700 points, and his coach says that he is talented enough to be playing in the Power 5. Alabama A&M with some pressure.
Job by Kelly handling the pressure. George was ready to give support.
Down low, Duwana draws a foul, and he's going to the line.
Good post up by Duwana. Found some space right in the middle of the lane. A little pick and roll, rolled that short roll, but stayed with it, got it all the way to the rim.
Transfer from NC State.
Not a lot of contact there. The officials are tightening up the whistle early in this second half.
Dongo lost the handle. Alabama A&M, they've made just 7 shots all game. Shooting 21% from the field. Backdoor, Downey, he draws a whistle. And you're right, Tim. A lot of whistles in the first couple of minutes of this second half.
It's a little touchy. A little touchy right now. Officials, I don't know why they're tightening it up, but a little slap on the head. Reeves got caught.
If you're Alabama A&M, coach, Otis Hewley. What's the message to your team in the locker room at halftime down by 17?
Well, you probably try to get out and transition a little bit more. Their defense has been pretty good. As we said, Georgia Tech only made 11 buckets in the first half, and it means there were a lot of misses. So get up on the glass and try to beat Georgia Tech down the floor if you can, because going against their set defense has been a problem.
Bulldogs are making their free throws. They're 6 for 7 as a club. And they have ratcheted up the defensive intensity. Down low, Dongo lost the handle on the way up.
Nice look, though, by George. Dribbled, driving into the gap with the extra pass.
That was freshman to freshman, but they couldn't convert. Dalen Smith driving kick. Blackwell, long 17-footer. And the rebound, Dongo for Georgia Tech. Layup is through for Nate George. Blackwell racing ahead. Kick out Smith. His three won't go. And it's out of bounds to Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech doing a good job just dribble driving into the gap, and it's way too easy. Alabama A&M, no rotation over to resist at the rim for George.
Tim, you brought up the transition defense a moment ago. It feels like there has been no transition game at all from either team. This game's been played in the half court today.
Well, both teams are doing a pretty good job, though, of on the retreat getting back, and it's Georgia Tech's loosening it up a little bit, but they're starting to rely on the three.
Whistle and a blocking foul called on Dalen Smith. Tried to draw the charge on Reeves, and that is the second personal foul issued to Dalen Smith, and the fourth team foul already for the Bulldogs in this half.
At this pace, we'll miss dinner tonight, James. These fouls are coming rapidly.
Yeah, 3.5 minutes of game clock played here in the second half.
And it's more about kind of choppy offense and reaching defense. It's not the officials' fault. You've got to call the fouls when they're there.
Reeves with a nice move.
That was a nice move by Reeves. He is an impressive player. He got really good footwork and creativity in the lane and at the rim.
He is so smooth in everything that he does. He has 16 points today on 5 of 10 shooting. Also has a career-high 9 rebounds. Alabama A&M just one made shot since the 6-12 mark of the first half. Blackwell drains a three right on cue. He's been the best shooter from downtown this season for the Dogs.
Well needed for Alabama A&M. And then the Cardinals sin. They don't run back after a make. They allow a transition bucket immediately.
18 for Kowacie Reeves to lead all scorers. And a block on the outside. Georgia Tech with numbers. Coleman lost it out of bounds. It'll stay on this end with the Yellow Jackets. An 18-point lead for Georgia. Research that helps save lives. You can join the fight against cancer by visiting v.org/donate. 100% of your donation goes directly to cancer research. Back here in Atlanta, Georgia Tech leads Alabama A&M by 18. A big game so far from Kowacie Reeves, who's pacing for a new career high. He has 18. His career high is 21 coming in.
He's not only a good offensive player, he's got real nice length. He can guard out on the perimeter. He can guard power forwards if he has to, and he's very good getting out in transition.
Coleman bumped and fouled. Debo Coleman, haven't seen a lot of him in this game. Just 9 minutes, he hasn't scored. Came in averaging almost 10 points per game, shooting 41% from 3 over the last 7. And the big thing with him is he never turns it over. He's only committed 1 turnover in 176 minutes this season. That's top 10 in the country.
Well, Damon Stoudemire right now wants to play a lot of players, and there you see the nice short roll right down the middle of the floor. Claude in the lane, and he wants to play a lot of guys. Probably moving forward, he's going to have to tighten up his rotation just a bit, but a lot of guys that can do different things. He can move positions around depending on matchups.
Williams commits the foul. Claude going to the line for 2. Tim, what did you like about Damon Stoudemire as a player back at Arizona? 1995, he was the Pac-10 Co-Player of the Year, averaged 22 points per game that season as a point guard.
Well, what didn't you like? He did everything for Arizona and Lute Olson, and played an exciting style, kind of like his teams are trying to do now. Push the ball. He was one of the best I've ever seen in college, running the pick and roll, and he was terrific in the NBA as well, NBA Rookie of the Year, and really did a nice job at Pacific. And was very well thought of in the NBA as an assistant coach with the Celtics.
Dalen Smith heading to the line for Alabama A&M. Smith has 5 points to lead the Bulldogs today. Splits the pair, and the rebound to Georgia Tech. Here's that Alabama A&M full court man-to-man pressure.
It's bothersome to Georgia Tech, but Georgia Tech has found a way to handle it without turning it over and then resetting and getting into their offense.
Sturdivant on the handle for the Yellow Jackets after the lob. The finish at the rim from Tyzhaun Claude.
Well, they're doing a good job now with their pick-and-roll game. Damon Stoudemire sees that Alabama A&M is staying put on the outside to take away the 3, so they're creating a little 2-man game in the middle of the floor, and Claude's doing a good job on that short roll and then finishing in traffic.
Georgia Tech's built a 19-point lead. A 3 from Blackwell off, and it's 1 and done. Kelly with the rebound. Coleman from the outside can't ring the bell. And a foul down low on Alabama A&M's Smith. That's the 4th personal foul on Dalen Smith, the leading scorer on the season for Alabama A&M.
Smith's doing a lot to handle today with the multiple wing-type players that Georgia Tech has, and a lot of guys that can move around out on the perimeter and then put the ball on the deck and get to the rim.
Claude, a 54% free throw shooter for the year. Has 5 points tonight for Georgia Tech off the bench. Make it 6 with both free throws. Yellow Jackets have built their largest lead. Tim, what's the goal for Alabama A&M over the final 13 minutes?
Well, trying to just get back in this game with their defense, and their defense has been solid all afternoon and evening long. It's just, they're just so stagnant. You see one guy's dribbling, everybody else is standing on the offensive end. That's not going to cut it against this tough, stingy Georgia Tech defense.
On the outside, a 3, just barely beating the buzzer. Doesn't fall for Osborne, and Georgia Tech on the secondary break. A deflection out of bounds. It stays on this end with Georgia Tech.
Yeah, it's easier said than done, though, because Georgia Tech's defense has been outstanding all game long, and if your defense somehow can create some easy opportunities by way of the turnover or off defensive rebounding, you've got to try to push the pace and get the ball to the rim in transition.
Thievery from Jalen Randall. Randall goes up. Punched out of bounds. It will stay on this end of the floor with Alabama A&M.
Excuse me, James. That's what Alabama A&M needs to do. Even though Georgia Tech did a good job getting back and contesting at the rim, they did a good job, though, pushing the pace. That's what they need to do against this tight Georgia Tech defense.
Williams, he's a capable shooter from the outside. The rebound to Claude for Georgia Tech. Sturdivant navigating a pocket pass and a whistle. Foul called on Alabama A&M's ACC Bryant.
That's what Coach Hewley's telling his whole team, including Bryant right now, is just you're reaching. You got to play with your feet, use your length. Because the officials on the perimeter right now are calling it very tight.
Sturdivant at the line for Georgia Tech. Mentioned earlier that Alabama A&M, midway through the first half, had already played all 13 scholarship players. Now on the other side, Georgia Tech, they're yet to play a single game with their full 13 scholarship players because senior guard Lance Terry, who is expected back at some point this season, he's been sidelined with an injury, and that's another double-digit scorer for Georgia Tech from last year.
Well, when Terry does come back, obviously that will be a really good addition to Miles Kelly on that wing and Reeves as well, and give Damon Stoudemire a lot of options because you do see, even though their defense is hanging in there, they do struggle at times to score.
Georgia Tech with 6 offensive rebounds in this second half. Abram has to hoist. Another offensive rebound. Abram drills it.
Well, keep firing. It might go in, and that's what Abram did. Good presence of mind, though, on the offensive glass to slide back out. And a lot of teams do that. Instead of trying to put it right back up on an offensive rebound, they look back out to the three-point line. That time, Abram did a good job of sliding into that open area.
Peak bottled up down low, and a whistle and a foul will be called on Georgia Tech. Add to this Georgia Tech team when he comes back. And I think, Tim, one thing that stands out to me is he's an outstanding shooter. He hit 47 threes last year and shot 39% from deep.
Yeah, he averaged 11 points a game in the ACC as well. So he can step up and play at a high level. And I think Damon Stoudemire absolutely is confident that he can just fit in seamlessly once he does get back into the lineup, and just gives them another guy that can go get a shot, which will take a lot of pressure off guys like Miles Kelly and Kowacie Reeves. Get them open a little bit more because people are going to have to pay attention to Terry.
Peak's free throw ends an 8-0 run for Georgia Tech over the last 2.5 minutes. Alabama A&M doesn't have a field goal in almost 5 minutes. Sturdivant gets it across the dividing line for the Yellow Jackets, leading by 23. Pick and roll. Corner 3 from Coleman. It's not there. And another whistle. Stays on this end of the floor. Foul on Downey of Alabama A&M. That's already their 9th foul in the first less than 9 minutes of play in this second half.
Well, it's a lot of reaching going on right now, and sometimes that goes with frustration on the offensive end, and I think that's what Alabama A&M is facing. Just can't get anything going on offense, and it's not being fundamental on defense, especially on the glass.
Georgia Tech with their 9th offensive rebound in this half. Coleman, 10th offensive rebound. This time it leads to some second chance points.
Well, right now, Alabama A&M is watching, and Georgia Tech is attacking on the glass.
That was Sacco with the basket. Kowacie one-on-one with Claude. Knifing in the floater. Volleyed off the glass, and the rebound to the Yellow Jackets. And a reaching foul on Bryant. And this will put Georgia Tech at the line. That is the 10th foul on Alabama A&M.
Anthony Bryant's just trying to make something happen, but this is where you got to run back on defense. Instead, they put him on the line for 2.
Georgia Tech last in the ACC from the free throw line at 65% as a team. And today just 10 of 18 for 55%, 3 for 8 in this second half. Kyle Sturdivant goes 2 for 2. Sturdivant, the only player remaining from Georgia Tech's 2021 ACC championship team. Dalen Smith out on the floor with 4 fouls for the Bulldogs.
Coach Hilly's still trying to find that right combination that can break the ice of this tight defense. Really kind of pack line-ish. They just force the ball into the paint, and they come with a lot of help. There it is again.
Corner 3 off the mark from McLean. And Georgia Tech with the rebound.
It's a good job though by Alabama A&M. They drove and kicked to McLean on the perimeter, but he's just not a consistent three-point shooter.
Abram. Extra pass. Sturdivant turns down a 3. And the corner pocket triple is there for Kowacie.
Kowacie made himself available. His first 3 on the year. Good job by Georgia Tech, just spacing the court, making the extra pass. Alabama A&M was chasing them on the perimeter.
What's Georgia Tech wanting to do on this end defensively? You mentioned the pack line defense just a moment ago. Elaborate on that.
Well, that means you control the ball, you try to force it into the paint, and as it goes into the paint, you give a lot of help on ball side. On weak side, you stay home on ball side. You take away the threes, you take away the rim, you give up the medium jump shots under duress.
Abram, he pops a 3. Kowacie keeps it alive. Abram lock and load, can't hit. Alabama A&M all the way to the rim and a hard foul. Riley going to the line, cherry picking on the play. He'll shoot 2.
Good job by Alabama A&M on that possession to finally get a little tip out on that offensive rebound. And Riley thought he had a breakaway.
London Riley gets the shooter's roll. He's got 4 points tonight. Alabama A&M shooting 19% from the floor, pacing for a season low. They have made just 2 field goals in the last 17 minutes, bridging the 2 halves together. And this isn't the first team that Georgia Tech has done this to. They did it to Mississippi State, held them to a season low, and Duke to a season low shooting.
It's a stingy defense. It's a work in progress, though. I think that they're getting better by the game with their defensive chemistry. And, that's chemistry on the defensive end, too. And as Damon said, we're better defensively than we are offensively, but I think the offense will come because they have a lot of good, capable, skilled players on the perimeter.
Georgia Tech turns it over for the 13th time tonight. The Yellow Jackets have a stretch coming up. They play Penn State on the 16th, and then UMass, and then the winner of Portland and Hawaii before they go to Florida State. So this is really the last non-conference tune-up before the non-conference matchups get tougher right before ACC play. is too tall and out of bounds. 14th Georgia Tech turnover.
Changed that thought at the end of the year. I thought there would be a lot of balance getting to the Final Four, and we saw San Diego State, Florida Atlantic get there, but I was convinced Connecticut was the best at the end, and they may be, again, the best. They look really good, even though they are young.
18-point lead. Make it a 28-point lead, I should say, for Georgia Tech.
Although James, Arizona seems to be distancing themselves right now as a team that has absolutely been the best so far this season.
What do you like about that team?
Size, experience, speed, interchangeable parts, terrific coaching. They beat Wisconsin easily. You know, saw the game against Duke earlier in the year. They pushed Duke around in the paint. I think Duke will learn from games like that moving forward. But they've got no weaknesses that I can see.
Now, Tim, be honest. You said 15 or 16 teams you felt like could have won it going into the tournament last year. Was UConn one of the 15?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, you were all in.
If you didn't think UConn could win it all at the beginning of the tournament, you should not be a college basketball analyst because you're not paying attention. But I thought they were terrific all season long, and then after the first couple games, I thought they could win it. I really did, and they won it easily.
So I think that's the thing, is just how dominant they were in the tournament. As Abram cans a three for Georgia Tech. That is their 9th of the day.
UConn was impressive again going into Kansas. They got down, hit in the face pretty good in the first half, but they came back, took the lead at Allen Fieldhouse and lost in the last minute. But I'm sure they'll get better because of that, and they just handled North Carolina pretty easily earlier this week at Madison Square Garden.
Alabama A&M with back-to-back field goals for the first time all game and a steal. Blackwell weaving 1-on-3, and he draws a foul. The freshman heads to the line for the Bulldogs.
Tech a little loose on those last couple possessions, maybe looking at the scoreboard a touch too early for Damon Stoudemire's liking.
6 minutes left. Alabama A&M will head to the line.
Now, this is what Alabama A&M didn't do early enough in this half, is force some turnovers and get out in transition.
What do you think about this kid, Caleb Blackwell, point guard for Alabama A&M? His coach had some really high praise for the freshman.
Well, I like his decision-making. He's been very solid all season long. He gets into the gaps. He's pretty quick, can make an open three. I think he's a keeper for Alabama A&M. He's a guy that Otis Hewley can keep on the floor and trust to run his team. And I think he'll get better and better as he gets more experience, but a real good-looking freshman in the SWAC.
Alabama A&M preseason picked 7th in the SWAC. They did receive one first-place vote.
And we continue to put the pressure on. This is good for team building, as Otis Hewley said. We're trying to get ready for our league, and they want to play this quick style, but Georgia Tech just too athletic up front.
Claude's had a nice night, 8 points and 6 rebounds. Big steps, and the teardrop goes for McLean.
McLean's got some good length as well. You see him getting out in transition.
Kelly tees it up. 2-on-2 the other way. Moody, +1. He'll count the basket, going to the line for the old-fashioned three. Alabama A&M's made their last 4.
They've got all the pieces. They're young in some spots, but I think they'll figure it out. They've got to rebound the ball a lot better to be consistent. That's the thing, and now Georgia Tech is starting to put it on here with a little bit more aggressive play against that press, but I really like Virginia. I think We talked about the pack line defense, and that's Tony Bennett's ace in the hole, and they look like they're back, but they can also shoot the ball. Offensively, they're going to be an improved team as well. I like what Syracuse is doing recently. I think they're playing much better. They had a good win at Georgetown earlier today.
A deflection, it stays on this end. Kapare had the big slam for Georgia Tech 2 trips ago. Tim, what about Clemson? They entered the top 25. They are 8-0, off to their best start since 2007, and they're currently on top of TCU, who's also undefeated out of the Big 12. Clemson leads by 9. That game's being played on a neutral floor in Toronto.
Well, Clemson showed me a lot by beating Alabama and last week. And with Clemson, they've got a lot of depth, got a lot of experience, and they've added Joe Girard III and the transfer from Syracuse, and he kind of gives them something they never really had, just that deep, long-range threat just adds to their other guys that can score, and I think gives them a different look. But I like Brad Brownell's team a lot.
Spinning in the lane, bucket will fall for Moody. He has 6 for the Bulldogs. Alabama A&M, they've made 6 of their last 7 shots. And a run out for Blackwell. He converts on the break.
It's probably a little bit too late for Alabama A&M, but this is a good sign for them moving forward. They get staying spunky with their defense and trying to get out in transition.
We head to our final media timeout. The under 4. 18 points today for Georgia Tech on 6 of 11 shooting. Last 3 games, Duke, Georgia, and Alabama A&M, 14, 12, and 18. He's also grabbed a career-high 9 rebounds for Georgia Tech this afternoon. Final chapter of this one here in Atlanta with Georgia Tech up by 23, and Reeves giving it up. It goes to Gapare in the corner. Knifing, has it stuffed. George on the outside. And Gapare, a whistle and a walk on Georgia Tech. Now that's one thing Georgia Tech will want to clean up. That's their 17th turnover, Tim.
Sometimes over-dribbling is a problem against a tight defense. Usually it is, but if you have the right guys taking the ball into the gaps, I think sometimes guys that aren't supposed to dribble in traffic are dribbling in traffic. And there's one thing Damon Stoudemire almost never did as a player. He just made the right decision off the bounce, and it was really hard to guard. And that's what they have to do. They've got to run things through George, through Kelly. Reeves rarely puts the ball on the floor unless he finds it has an open lane, but some of their secondary players have done that today.
Moody squares on his defender, and he draws a foul. Alabama A&M have only been outscored by Georgia Tech by 6 in this second half.
Georgia Tech has struggled at the free throw line. They got to the free throw line early, but Alabama A&M 2 for 19 from the 3.
ACC big picture, you brought up Virginia. They've scored 80 or more points in 3 of their 9 games this season. They only did that twice all of last season. What's different when you look at Virginia?
Well, sharing the basketball. They've got a group of guys that can score. And Tony Bennett's teams have always been, people say they're going to walk the ball up the court. I think they're playing at a faster pace, to be honest with you. I think they're trying to open up the court, and coaches that adjust to the way the game is played, especially when you're such an outstanding defensive coach. I think that's what Virginia has done. They've opened up their offense a little bit more. They're more of a 4-out, 5-out offense, where instead of Tony Bennett calling plays, it's more of a read and react offense, and they've got a group of good shooters they always have on the floor.
The other team I'm curious to get your thoughts on, because they'll be here on ACC Network after us, is Pitt. As Abram bricks a 3 and the rebound to Alabama A&M. Pitt Blake Hinson hit 9 threes earlier this week, a pit record against West Virginia. A nice win for the Panthers is Gapare with the Euro step and the feathering layup for Georgia Tech.
Well, Jeff Capel's done a really good job of retooling this program in the last 2 years, and he's an outstanding coach, and he understands the portal. And Hinson, that was the backyard brawl game against West Virginia, so it wasn't against some bye game at home where they're going to win by 30. I mean, this was a rivalry game on the road, so that was very impressive by Hinson.
Turnover Georgia Tech with under 2 to go. I think you said it best. It was on the road. And it was in front of 13,000 rowdy West Virginia fans that Pitt went on the road and won by nearly 20. Georgia Tech by 23 here with 1:45 left. We'll move to 5-3 and 5-1 here at home. Runner, yes, it's down for Chad Moody.
Well, it's one of those games that you've got to be able to get your team ready, get in, stay fundamental, make sure they play tough defense, hope some shots fall in the second half, and that's what Georgia Tech has done. And this is a good little building block for Georgia Tech as Damon Stoudemire tries to keep his team moving in the right direction after a couple good wins and then a disappointing loss at Georgia. They just got to figure out how to go on the road, and I'm sure they'll learn from their 2 road experiences that they had in the pre-conference.
Alabama A&M burns a timeout after the basket from 8:27. They've dominated the rebounding 50-26, and they have 16 offensive rebounds as Georgia Tech will clear the bench, leading by 19 here at home.
Well, they'll head into the final exams, and that's you talked about it earlier, James. You asked about these type of games heading into the exam week, and they are difficult for not only the road team that's got to come in and play another road game, but the home team who's expected to win. It's not a glamorous opponent, but an opponent that the coaches know can be dangerous. We talked about the SWAC, what they've done in the past, and also this season as far as their wins against the Power 5. And so you just got to get your team to play the right way. And Georgia Tech, even though their offense at times didn't click and they turned it over too much, their defense got them through this game as well as their rebounding.
Kowacie Reeves at the line, drills the first. He's up to 19 points. Career high 9 rebounds, 6 of 11 from the field. He's made all 5 of his free throws so far tonight. And Miles Kelly, who had the big first half, Tim, for Georgia Tech with 11 points, he hit 3 threes, hasn't scored in the second half, hasn't been on the floor a whole lot, but also when he's been out there, he hasn't been forcing anything for Georgia Tech. He's letting the game come to him.
Well, they have good balance. They really do. And I think Nate George, the insertion of Nate George into the starting lineup has really helped Georgia Tech in their balance. Their understanding you share the ball, move it around. It doesn't have to always be about Miles Kelly. Tonight it was Reeves as well. And they got good production for Gapare and Claude and Sturdivant and Coleman. I mean, these guys can all make plays. And I think that's a big positive moving forward. Abram's been solid. See him in there helping out with the ball handling out on the floor. And so Damon Stoudemire's got to be happy where his team is right now. They just have to figure out how to be a little bit more consistent on the road.
Reeves would have had a new career high if that jumper fell. 17 seconds left. Alabama A&M will have it. Nobody scored more than 8 points for Alabama A&M tonight. They'll have a week off for finals, and then get ready for Penn State on a neutral floor on December 16th, followed by UMass on the 21st, and then Portland or Hawaii on December 22nd. Prior to Christmas, then they'll come back January 3rd, 2024 at Florida State. A Georgia Tech foul in the open floor. That's on Amari Abram. As soon as we're done here, we'll get you out to Canisius at Pitt. Jay Alter and Debbie Antonelli standing by for that one. Georgia Tech led 34-17 at the half. Alabama A&M's played almost even with the Yellow Jackets in the final 20 minutes.
Well, as a coach, you just want to try to get through these games without any injuries, especially in a 21-point game, but continue to see fouls being called. But that's really not about that. It's about the big picture for Damon Stoudemire. I like what he's doing for Georgia Tech and his mindset about building a program.
Nichols with the rebound for the Yellow Jackets. Final 5 seconds. A three hoisted by a Bulldog. Doesn't drop, and that's going to do it. Georgia Tech wins it 70-49 for Tim Welsh. I'm James Westling.